Bringing Joy Back to Teaching and Learning with a Gameful Classroom, Part 3, still with Katrine Becker. You've now heard something about my background and how I got to the thing that I'm doing, and we've had a look at my 4 C's of gameful learning. It's time to look at the implications of this kind of a design. So somebody said that we were bringing joy back to teaching and learning. So where's the joy? Well, it turns out there actually is more joy in this, for both the instructor and for the learners. When I first started running my courses this way, I kind of expected, well, maybe hoped, the students would appreciate the choices and the flexible deadlines and the way that they could take control of their own learning. And that actually did happen. But what I was really surprised by was a tremendous increase in the feeling of community, how we were a sense that we were all in it together. And an awful lot of the students commented that they really liked coming to class because they felt as they were part of something. In addition to those other things, there are some specific caveats as well as a few other bonuses that come out of this kind of a design. And we will look at those now. Okay, first the caveats. For one thing, I've been working on this design for many years, and so I really can't sum up very quickly what all has been learned and all of the details that go into making this work smoothly. However, I can give you the highlights. So one thing that's really important is you have to be organized. You have to set the goals and the rules, and you need to know what they are. You have to front load all of the material at the course, right? It's kind of like a game in that sense. If you start playing a game and there are parts of it that aren't working and they tell you, well, wait until midterm, that sort of takes some of the impetus away, some of the fun of doing all of this stuff. So if you don't have that done, what that also means is that you are removing choice. If you don't have all the materials available for them, there are fewer things for them to choose among. The other thing is we need to have efficient access. It is hard to overstate the tedium and the challenges that come when you're working with a piece of software like a course management system or something where it takes 20 clicks to get to one thing. Multiply that by 50 students or so, and you can do the math. That's an awful lot of clicks for every single assignment. So efficient access is really important. That is for the resources so that you can make them available to your students so they can get at them in a variety of ways. We can't always assume, for example, that our students are going to have really fast Wi-Fi. So give them ways to download things. Give them things as videos, as audio, as text in a bunch of different formats so that they can access it using whatever materials, whatever resources they have available to them, and so that they can make use of them in whatever ways suit their own learning needs best. In terms of submission and marking, again, if it takes me 10 clicks to get to a particular student's assignment, then multiply that by 50 students, that's 500 clicks every time I want to mark one assignment. With this kind of a setup, they will be able to submit a whole bunch of things, like on the order of 30 to 50 different items that they can submit for assessment. So if it takes me more than a couple of clicks to get at what I need to get at, this is going to become terribly onerous for the instructor. Also for the student, for submissions, make it easy, make it straightforward. Everything gets submitted the same way. And a specific example, I have done most of mine by setting them up using Google Sheets, and what they do is they will paste a link to the thing that they're submitting in a spreadsheet that I have given to them. When there is a link there, I can mark it. And it's as simple as that. I open their spreadsheet, take a look at what's changed, mark the stuff that's there, and I'm done. So efficient access is really important. And by the way, for things like marking and recording grades and all of that, I have not yet found a course management system that allows me to set up scoring in the way that I want to. The last thing here is support. This is a radically different way of approaching course content from what most students are accustomed to. We still do lectures and we do all of those sorts of things that are typical, but the way they do their work, the way they submit their work, what their deadlines are, what their options are all radically different from what most of them have ever experienced in a class. So expect it's going to take time. It usually takes my students most of the first month of term to get their footing on how this is supposed to go. I give them lots of feedback. I give them lots of feedback on the work that they submit. And I give them lots of reminders to help keep them on track so that they can help to prioritize their work and schedule things in order to get stuff done so they don't end up with, hitting 2 weeks before the end of term and realizing that they've only submitted 10% of what they need to do. So those are the caveats. And here's what you can win when you play our game. First, the marking part. 50 students, each of which can submit 30 different things. Isn't that really terrible and an awful lot of work? Turns out it's actually not much more work than a typical class is. Part of it is that I mix up the kinds of tasks, the kinds of work that they can do. Some things are very short for me to mark. Some things I can mark by sight. I open the file, look at it. Yep, good enough. Let's move on. Other things take me more time, but I have fairly specific things I'm looking for. So I can look at the assignment and each thing I can focus on. So it focuses my time as well as my attention. Another aspect of this is because of the way I have set up deadlines and because of the fact that students can hand in any particular task, any particular assignment whenever they want, I end up getting different things trickling in at different times, which is also for me very different from the usual walking home with a stack full of assignments and marking them all in one sitting or in a couple of sittings or whatever. And people have asked me if that doesn't make me less consistent. They feel that they are in fact more consistent if they can mark all of these papers at the same time, like one after the other, rather than doing one day and maybe another one 2 weeks later and then another one 3 weeks later. And it turns out that that's not actually true. I've done both, and I've done both quite a lot. And I can tell you, when I'm sitting with a stack of 250 final exams to mark, by the time I get halfway down that stack, I am annoyed because I keep seeing the same dumb mistakes over and over and over again. And it is very, very hard to mark the 250th student with the same patience and the same kind of compassion as I did the first one. So when I spread the marking out, and I'm not marking the same thing for a long period of time, like not marking 20 papers all in one night, I actually am fresher and I am better able to give the student compassion, to think about what they've actually done rather than thinking about my frustration with the owner's job of having to do marking. So marking in short bursts is also really quite beneficial for me. There are a lot of things that I set up that I've said already that are fairly easy to mark. I can do them quickly. So 10 minutes before my class, I open up the class spreadsheet and I see which students have handed things in, and I start at the top. If someone's handed something in, I go to their spreadsheet, I click on the link to the assignment they handed in, I take a look at it, I record the mark, and I move on. I can do 3 or 4 or 5, sometimes in 10 minutes before coming to class. Another aspect of this is that the students get really fast feedback. We know how important that is from games. So not only do they get fast feedback, but the win for me is I don't end up with a growing pile of papers to mark because I can get the job done bit by bit as well. There's low guilt. That's a wonderful thing for me because I actually hate assessing. I hate marking. I hate rejecting things. I hate saying that that's wrong. But with the ability to both resubmit things and to choose other things to do, the value, the attachment to any one particular thing is not as large. So if I say this assignment doesn't make it, that student isn't going to fail as a result. They have other things they can do to recover. So that makes it easier for me to say, nope, this isn't good enough. You got this little bit right, but those other things, you're off the mark. Away you go. Fix it. So that helps me with my feelings of guilt. A huge bonus that I wasn't looking for but thought might happen because I've had other things I've tried in past years is there's a lot less cheating. And I've come to realize that the amount of cheating is connected to the perception of risk, the amount of anxiety that the students have. If the chances that they will fail are high with this one thing that they have to do, with this exam or with this assignment, they are far more likely to cheat. If they're not going to fail by trying their best, they will do their own work far more often than not. So there will always be some students, yes, who do cheat. But most students would rather learn the material, would rather earn their marks honestly. Finally, the feedback thing. Again, with their ability to resubmit things and the choices they have for doing other things instead, what happens is they actually read the feedback I give them because they have a choice to make. They need to look at this and make a decision about whether they should work this assignment again and try and fix it up, or set it aside and try something different. Either way, they've read my feedback and they have thought about it. So they have probably learned something. They've probably calculated in their heads what they would do differently if they were to approach it again. I win. That's definitely a win for me. And now for the learners' benefits. They get a lot of choice. It can often give them a feeling of agency once they get the hang of it. And they feel respected. One of the things that was a real surprise for me that came out of this was increased creativity among my students. If the risk of failing is lowered, they are freer to try something different. Rather than always focusing on what the teacher wants and what do I need to do to get an A, they can try something to see how it works. If it doesn't work, they have used up some time, but they were learning while they were doing it, so it's not a total loss. So they do try different kinds of things, and they come at these assignments sometimes in very interesting ways. It remains my job to be clear on what I am looking for and what constitutes good enough in one of these assignments. Moving down to working at their own pace, this is a huge one for students. Everybody's very busy. We all have other things that we need to do in our lives. We have families, we have loved ones, we have jobs that we have to go to, we have other courses that we have to do as well. And so people can work at their own pace in this course. They can go fast through the things that they are already comfortable with, or the things that they find easy, that come easily to them. They can spend more time on the things that they find challenging. So in one of the courses I taught, it was an introduction to computing course, like a general service course for all university students. It's very likely that some of those students coming in there will already know how to use Word or how to use a spreadsheet or various other things. And if they already know that, then what's wrong with them doing the assignments right up front, getting them marked, and moving on with their lives? They can do this in September when none of the other courses have a heavy load yet, get a lot of this work out of the way, and then focus more on the other courses that they have that do demand more of their time. On the other hand, if a student is struggling with something, they can work through it and not feel the added stress of having to hurry to get it done because the assignment's due tomorrow and then we're going to go on with something and I still don't get it. So this allows people to reorganize the work that they have to do in a way that better fits with how they learn and with their own lives. Which brings us up to the top right corner here, lives. They can work school around life rather than vice versa. So I've had students, there's very few things that are really time critical in my course. There are a few, but none of them are crucial. None of them are pass, fail, make it or break it kinds of things. And I have had students that didn't come to class for a week or so, and then they came back and said, I'm really sorry. I'm a single mom. My daughter was in hospital and I had to spend time with her. I'm really grateful I could do that without losing anything in this class. So giving them that flexibility really does help an awful lot of students. This last one, there are, by the way, other kinds of benefits, and I can't tell them all in a short presentation, but I want to highlight some of the really interesting ones. The recycling thing is a rather radical idea for many people in academia. I decided, since my focus is on them being able to show me that they are able to do the work that I need them to do, or that they in fact understand the concepts, then I actually don't care whether they learned it in my class or whether they did it somewhere else. And when they submit a piece of work for me to assess, I also don't care if they have previously submitted it in a different class. What's important to me is that it meet my criteria. I have laid out my criteria. If it meets my criteria, then why shouldn't I give them credit? If what I am truly doing is trying to assess their capabilities, their competence, then what does it matter whether they did it brand new, fresh for me, or whether they did it at some other time? If they did it 10 years ago, that's a different thing. But if they did it last semester, or if they did it in a different course, I don't actually have a problem. Let me give you an example. In my Intro to Computing course, it's a service course, students from all over campus, and I get interior design students in some of those classes. One of my assignments is for them to build a portfolio website for themselves. Well, it turns out that the design students have been already given us an assignment like that in their design courses. So they can submit to me their assignment that they did for this other class. If it meets my criteria, they get the marks. If it doesn't meet my criteria, they have a choice. They can adjust the portfolio website they have already built to meet my criteria, or they can build a brand new one. But it doesn't matter to me that they already had done this work before. Well, we're in the home stretch now. In the next and last part, I will show you some of specific examples of the way that I have designed the assignments, the way I've set up the course grading structure, and also some of the results I've gotten from specific courses that I did teach. Stay tuned.